This is the platform. Justin Marshall joins us. I tell you what, I forgot that I was a little bit side-faced on Saturday night, Marshy. So that's Nisbo doing you. Ho-ho! He did a Justin, mate. How was that?
Yeah, he did. But it certainly was a bit of a ho-ho, wasn't it? When you see the final whistle blown, and I guess many people were expecting the All Blacks to bounce back, fight back, and secure the series, but it wasn't to be that sort of night, for sure.
Well, rather than, we've got a lot of navel gazing and introspection to do over the next wee while, of course, and, I've got a few questions to ask you about that. But first and foremost, we've got to stand up and be adults and men about this and congratulate a team that came here, that learnt off the midweek match loss to New Zealand Māori, that learnt off the first test loss where they got blown out on the scoreboard and bounced back and dominated the last two tests. So you've got to hand it to them, mate.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And they obviously arrived on these shores having never won a test series or, in fact, a game here before. So there was certainly no false illusions about the fact that it was going to be difficult. And I think probably what was really commendable was the attitude and the way they approached this series. You're right, they suffered some adversity early in the tour, but they did learn. Albeit, I still think that they showed in those two games that they lost that they were a good side. They just weren't quite on song around that time, but they got better by week, didn't they? And, they're very well coached, they're a very well drilled side, and rightly now have earned their spot on top of the world, the best ranked team in the world at the moment, and you can see why.
Marshy, 81 tests for the All Blacks. I want to go back eventually to 1998 where we lost 5 in a row, and you're in that situation in that team where the call was to sack the coach, John Hart. But Justin, people look to people like yourself, and we watch the breakdown, that we look to you guys who are past players for some answers. So, you've had a couple of days to sort of process this and talk to some other mates of yours and that. What's going through your mind?
Well, look, there's no doubt that this test series being lost to Ireland certainly wasn't expected. You would think that Ireland, even though they are a good side, that the All Blacks are a better side at home. So that's concerning that we were unable to effectively win that series and, in fact, probably put them away 3-0, which I expected us to be able to do, even though that sounds slightly arrogant. And then, obviously, you look at the fact that over the last 5 test matches, the All Blacks have lost 4 of them. Now, that's very similar to 1998. Yes, I have been in that position before. Probably the thing that I look at when I'm trying to assess it all is look at performance. I don't doubt and don't question that there's enough heart in what's happening out there with the players. Individually, I think they actually care and they want to win and they are trying hard. But what is clearly not working and what is clearly broken is that what they are doing out there individually with all that heart, they're not playing smart. And they are also not in the test match to the extreme that Ireland are, where they are continually pounding away, that they are in the fight. If they're playing good rugby and we're losing by 2 to 3 points and we're losing the series, but we are losing basically by going down and swinging, I think we could swallow that a lot more. But at the moment, it doesn't appear that we're even on the same page as a team like Ireland in terms of our game plan, our execution. Basic skills are letting them down. It means that something is not quite right, Marty. Something's off.
Mm. Well, look, I had a text from, one past All Black, I'm not going to mention his name, it doesn't really matter over the weekend, but he was saying that we played like disconnected individuals. You can almost feel a lack of confidence in that side. I mean, our backline's static and standing there. We're just kicking it. No one seems to, just a lack of kind of normal coordination you'd expect in an All Black side. Does that come, Justin, because we've lost games and players just do lose confidence because of that? I mean, you don't go from being a good player to a bad player overnight. I mean, that's just ridiculous to actually assume that. So what is it?
Well, I just think it's a lack of understanding when they're out there exactly what they want to achieve. And there's no doubt that Ireland are a good side. They do absolutely do their homework. I think they worked out that the All Blacks had slightly changed their tactics in the first test from what Ireland had seen before by hitting that 4th receiver ball carrier, something we hadn't seen from the All Blacks. They've pretty much gone away from the tip, which is one forward tipping it onto the other, because that was bringing fast defence right up into their face, and they weren't coping with that, and they're getting slow balls. So they certainly adapted, but Ireland did their homework, and so they started picking off that 4th defender in the second test in Dunedin, and we didn't adjust and didn't adapt. And then when the pressure came on, it looked like the default was just to kick the ball away and try and win it back. But ultimately, you're kicking back to a team that did fair play. Well, we'll have the ball then. We're happy to play with it, and we are happy to hold on to it. Yeah, and so, tactically, that's what my point is. Tactically, there's moments where the All Blacks look good. Like Ardie Savio's first try was 21 or 23 phases. So that comes with hard work, patience, skills, execution. But there's not enough of that throughout the game because there's too much disparity between doing that well and then doing fundamental things wrong. And I think a lot of that's game plan.
Justin Marshall is with us. Let's go back to 98. We lost 5 in a row. And Radio Sport started that year. I know you remember, mate. And look, it gave the radio station such a kickstart because, it was just, look, after 96, the high of winning a series in South Africa for the first time, you were there, magnificent. 97, we were unbeaten. We drew that last test, I remember, against the Poms, but we were the top of the world. A year later, the country's going absolutely berserk. You were right in the middle of this. So, just cast your mind back to then. How difficult is it when things are going badly and you start losing games in consecutive games?
Oh, it's really difficult, Marty. And like I said, I don't doubt that the players aren't out there trying because we certainly were in 1998. Albeit we were actually playing some pretty good rugby, but we were playing pretty good rugby against some very good, well-established sides at that stage. We'd had a mass clean-out in 1997 of players, very experienced players left the side. It left us with a new captain and a very young side, albeit a very young side full of talent. But when you look back at those 5 games, we were in all of them. I remember getting pipped at the post. I think it was either in Cape Town or Durban.
It was Durban, mate. It was Durban. Yeah, and he dropped the ball on the bloody line, that guy, whatever their hooker was. He dropped the ball on the line. I'm still bitter about it.
Absolutely did. That's right. So basically what I'm saying is we were actually in all of those test matches. I think we were outplayed in one of them. It might have possibly been Australia. But for the rest of them, we were certainly in the fight. But because we were lacking on, I guess, that massive experience that had left the team the year before, when we got to those real key moments, we just didn't win them, and we let the game slip. But we were certainly in the fight. The problem with the All Black team at the moment is that they're not quite in that fight. They're quite conclusively, and everyone's seeing that being outplayed. 22-3 in the decider.
Half-time, mate, yeah.
Be down by that at half-time is not... Yeah, you're always going to expect a comeback, and Ireland would have said that in the sheds. They would have said, well, they're not going to sit back and let us take the game. They'll come back. But for the vast majority of it, statistically, we've lost basically every stat there is to lose in all the test matches. We were actually better than Wellington, believe it or not. Can you believe that?
No.
We made Ireland make 80 more tackles.
Wow.
We had more possession, we had more territory, we had more rucks. But what let us down was we turned the ball over at breakdown 12 times to their 4, and we made 14 handling errors. So you're getting up now to around 30 mistakes. And that was either Ireland's good work at the breakdown or us not getting it right on the night, dropping the ball, knocking it on, forward pass, whatever it might be. So there was the problem, that they were in the game more this time statistically. He had enough ball, but we're making too many errors or getting turned over by a very good Ireland team at the breakdown.
Justin Marshall with us on the platform. We couldn't win a line out in the first half. When you can't control that set piece, that first phase possession, I know that, people don't... I can't stand people who don't understand the importance of first phase possession. We get a scrum in the 69th minute in front of their goalposts. Again, just so crucial. Whereas they scored 2 off line-out drives. Why are those fundamentals not working for us?
Because mentally we're not in the same space as Ireland. They're a super competent team that know their game plan really well, and I keep going back to game plan, I know. But that's massively important. The fact that Johnny Sexton, the captain, and the players around him, when they were turning down in a massive match like this, first time to ever win a series in New Zealand, kickable threes that he would knock over almost with his eyes closed, to go for more. They had confidence in their line-out and their line ball. And both times when they went at it, they came up with tries. It took a couple of digs the first time, but the second time, the hooker broke off the back and then they went, and that just showed that they've got huge confidence. When we got into those zones, mentally, because the team's struggling for rhythm and trying to find its way, it's not faultless. And, whether the fault comes from the line-out throw or the maul's too high or the scrum that you mentioned let us down when we had a perfect platform and then they turned the ball over 2 rucks later, that's simply not good enough against a team that is number one in the world, or at that stage we're number two. You need to be really accurate. And again, for me, it's also a lack of leadership, but lack of confidence as well.
Justin Marshall with us on the platform. So you're going to love this. So in 1998, I was leading the charge, screaming and howling from the rooftops. Here I am saying, listen, just park the bus for a second here. If you're going to sack Fozzie, then you have to look at every other coach, the backline coach, the scrum coach, the line-out coach, all of that kind of stuff. Is it just as simple, Justin, as saying, get rid of that guy, introduce a brand new head coach and everything becomes okay, does it? I just can't see how it can be that simple.
No, it's not that simple, unfortunately. And so when you're talking about changing an All Black coach, you're talking about changing all of the moving parts within that organisation, right through the management, coaching system. All of those people have to be looked at. And that's simplistically because a new coach needs to trust the people around him. He needs to know the familiar face that he sits down with, whether it's a physio, whether it's an analyst, or whether it's a scrum coach. So, the reason that there hasn't been that mass exodus, Marty, is because over the last 20 years, under Graham Henry, Steve Hansen, and Ian Foster, because they've all been under the same regime and they've all been assistant coaches moving on to head coaches, they've retained the same support staff. Yeah, Fozzie changed the coaches up a little bit, but underneath that, the Gilbert and Oakers, Darren Shands, Gilly, those guys are all still there, and they've been there for 20 years. This year's the first year the media manager changed from Joe Locke.
That's right.
So,
yeah,
you do. In answer to your question, if they are to change the coach, if I'm say, let's say I'm the coach, if I come in there, I will want my own assistant coaches, I want my own physio, analysts and all that. A massive clean out, but also a huge financial decision that the New Zealand Rugby Union would have to make. They'd have to pay out to the extent of 3 to 4 million the people that are in there now because they're still on contract for another year and a half, and then they'd have to pay all the new people coming in.
Okay, a couple of questions, I'll let you go. Can we rewrite this ship? We got 2 tests in Africa, which is just a fearsome place to go anyway, without Brodie Retallick as well, and with a forward pack that we can't seem to muscle up and bend the line. And if so, what players do we need that we aren't selecting that you can think, right, we've got to add this guy?
Well, I certainly do think that what Ireland have shown us is real physicality and real toughness. So we need to sort of think about how that balances out in our team, that we may concede a little bit of skill set, which we've been always massive on, just to get some pure muscle in there. So you have to think of some of the big back rowers going around at the moment, the Shannon Frizzell, the Cullen Graces, people like that, whether or not they come into the mix. They do also get to name another squad for the Rugby Championship. So this squad was only for the Irish Series. So I certainly think there are players that need to come in selection-wise. Centres are also a problem. And again, the back three, which we've debated, if a guy is not the best fullback in the country, why do we have to put him on the wing? If he can't start at fullback, then obviously he's not the best in the country. But anyway, that's just my thought. So, there's lots of changes that have to happen there. Just shortly to answer your question, Muddy, we have to make a concession that where we're at is way, way off where we need to be.
Yeah, it's true.
The break part of that, we're getting beaten up at the breakdown because we're not physical enough there. But equally, we are not playing smart, and we've not got the courage to play. New Zealand teams usually have the courage to play, and at the moment we feel like anything in our own half, we want to kick the ball back to the opposition. Now, to me, that's never been our mindset as a nation. We want ball in hand. We want to challenge defenders and defences by using the ball, having possession, and making them make tackles. That's where we need to make a massive mental shift. And if it means running from outside our own bloody goal line because it's on, we've got a 3-on-2, do it. Don't be afraid to use our skills and play what's in front of you and be instinctive. That's the massive mind shift we have to make from the real negative way we're playing at the moment.
Right. Final question then. Should Ian Foster and Mark Robinson be fronting up and answering these questions? And I'm not attacking either guy personally, but, when Ian deflected the questions at the press conference, I was thinking, if it was me, I would have turned the cameras around to that guy or whoever was asking and said, I know what you're trying to do here. You want to be on Instagram and everything else. Here, film yourselves now. The answer is no, I'm staying. And that would have ended it straight away. Mark Robinson comes out with a press statement. I would have thought, as a leader, as a CEO, I want to see you front up, mate. I don't want to read it on a piece of paper. I want to see you front up and go, listen, we're going to fix this. I've got confidence in this. I mean, that's what inspires people, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And by the way they've handled it, Marty, all it's done is create not only uncertainty, but it's created a massive moment on Wednesday because they've made it quite clear by their statement that something's not right. They've made it quite clear from inside the All Blacks that they're not prepared to front up and say everything's okay. The New Zealand Rugby Union have hinted that everything isn't okay, so we're looking into it. Instead of doing it internally and getting together and then making a pathway forward and then letting the public know that and saying, hey, look, this is what we are planning on going forward. We're not happy with where we've been, but we're certainly happy with where we're going to go from here.
Yeah.
And we can promise you we've fully looked at that. Here's our man. Here's our team going forward. We're going to get stuck in and we're going to do New Zealand proud. But at the moment, they've left it up to a massive big decision to be made, which I don't think was the right thing to do because it's pretty much throwing Fozzie under the bus.
Yeah, that's what I feel, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't feel it makes the New Zealand Rugby Union look competent and look like they've got it under control and that they're working together.
Man, we could talk about this all day, and I bet you have for the last couple of days, mate. I mean, has there been anything else in the mind on the conversation? Has anyone you've met over the last 24, 36 hours asked you about anything else, have they? No.
Oh, just well, not a great deal, but more, I guess, mostly is, wow, what's going on with Southern Hemisphere rugby? You know, like obviously South Africa got the job done at the weekend, but you know, Australia losing to England, Argentina being pushed by Scotland. You know, I took my headphones off at the end of the game. And Nisbo and I were talking, you know, when the pre-game presentation was going on to Ireland. I said to him, geez, I tell you what, I wouldn't like us to be getting on a plane next week and going over to play Wales and Scotland in the mess we're in right now, because Wales haven't beaten us for 69 years and Scotland have never beaten us. And I tell you what, we're feeling pretty vulnerable at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, right.
So I'm glad we've got time before we have to sort of think about that history dawning on us big time, because I would hate to see something else be taken away from us by this side.
Always a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much. We'll talk next week. Awesome.
Cheers, Marty. Thank you.
Mate. Justin Marshall with us, 81 Test veteran for the All Blacks. Hopefully you enjoyed that, people. Man, we spoke for a while. We spoke for about 15, 16 minutes. I could talk to the guy for another hour and a half.